All right. So we are live here. Do we have somebody in already? That's committed. All right, guys. Welcome to the live stream. I know I'm a little early. I'm just not great with technology, so I wanted to start off a little early just in case I had any technical issues. But I know I'm not too great with this stuff. But I think we got everything rolling. Is my mic turned up all good? I think so. All right. Um, yeah. So while we get started here, I mean, if you guys want to just throw some questions in, anything regarding Colts draft stuff, I mean, anything like that, feel free. But yeah, I mean, almost anything is goes here. Just be a little bit appropriate, please. That's all I really ask. But yeah, anything goes. Just ask away some questions regarding the Colts or the draft or whatever comes to your minds. And let me pub this here on social media and stuff so people can see my beautiful face. Let me see. Let me go to the YouTube channel. All right. Can everyone hear me okay? Anyone who's in here, can you guys hear me all right? Don't have any questions yet, so. Yes, perfect. How's it going, Paul? We are. How long until Taylor takes the starting role? I think it's gonna be pretty soon, honestly. I mean, when you spend when you spend a pick on a running back that early, um, yeah, I think you know I think they're gonna have a pretty good two back system going this year with Marlon Mack. But personally, from what I saw on film, I think Jonathan Taylor is just the better back overall. I think he runs with a lot more power. He doesn't need the development that Matt kind of needed these last couple of years. And also he's been pretty healthy. I mean, we're talking about a guy who's had probably close to 800, 900 carries in college, over 6,000 yards run. He was pretty healthy. So yeah, I think that Taylor's going to take it over sooner rather than later. And I still think they're going to have a good 1-2 punch this year. I mean, they're kind of like similar type of backs. They don't really do too many different things. Taylor runs a little bit more power. So it's kind of like a thunder and thunder type of combination. But I think Taylor kind of early on is going to get, I think that Taylor is going to get a lot of the carries early on. And then Gabriel asked, would you have taken Higgins over Pittman? No, I would have not taken Higgins over Pittman. And honestly, the main reason is I wasn't a big fan of Higgins. I think Higgins was a really good college receiver. I think he had really good hands. He was really good at, getting those contested catches, going up and get the ball. And I think that's going to be good for a guy like Joe Burrow. But honestly, the main reason that separated Pittman and why I like Pittman, a lot better than a guy like Higgins is Pittman is just such a smoother route runner. He's a really smooth athlete, tested really well at the combine. You also see that on film too. You could see that Pittman was this better athlete. And then Higgins, what he did at his pro day, even when pro day numbers are a little bit more generous towards you, Higgins didn't look like that great of an athlete. And I saw it on film. You could also see it kind of at that pro day. Just Higgins is not that great an athlete. I think he's going to have a role in the NFL, whether it be wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 or 4. I just like Pittman's upside a lot more. And I think immediately, I think Pittman's going to be a better receiver in the NFL. Do you think scouts ever see someone stick out on tape when studying someone else, like Blackman versus Washington? Yeah, no, I think that's the biggest part of scouting. You'll be watching Like Utah's defense is the perfect example. I mean, Utah's defense last year had, like 8 guys who went in this last draft, or 8 guys who came in this last draft class, guys who were in the Senior Bowl, guys who were in the Shrine Game. I think the Senior Bowl alone had like 7 Utah guys. So yeah, I mean, when you're watching film, I mean, you'll be watching. For instance, I was watching Terrell Burgess from Utah this past year, and half their defense. Bradley and I kind of stuck out. Other guys kind of stuck out. The corner Jalen Johnson became one of my favorite prospects in the class. Just watching Burgess. So yeah, I mean, honestly, it's part of being a scout. Obviously, I'm not at the level of like Colts scouts or anything like that. But just for me watching guys, I mean, I'll be watching players and then I'll be like, oh crap, that guy over there is making a ton of plays. I got to look up who that is. And then you see it's a guy who's in this class, or maybe it's the guy who's in the next class, and you kind of make note of that. But yeah, it's definitely a big part of scouting. You'll be watching one guy and be like, oh crap, this other guy either on the other team or on the other side, on the same defense is making a lot of plays. And that's a big part of scouting. Just kind of take notes of what you're seeing overall, and doesn't have to be the one guy that you're kind of picking out to study. JT, the Colts might be one of the best scheme fits in the draft. Can you talk about why it's a good fit and how you think they'll use him in the receiving game? So starting with why he's a good fit, the Colts like to really diversify their run game. Their run game is not just a zone run. It's not just a power run. They like to kind of do a little bit of both. They'll kind of run counter plays. They'll run inside traps, whams, outside zone. They'll run just power right down the middle. And they do a really good job mixing it up. And I think Jonathan Taylor at Wisconsin was, very, very good at that. They did a lot of that kind of stuff at Wisconsin. They just kind of fed him the ball whatever way they could. They were getting the ball on delays. They were getting the ball on powers, on counters and stuff like that. They're really getting him the ball any way they could. And I think, the Colts do a really good job of that, especially last year when they didn't really have that passing game. We kind of saw their ability to kind of mix up their run game and kind of diversify their run game. So it made it, a little bit trickier for defenses to get a read on. So Taylor, I think, is a good scheme fit. One, because this offensive line just plows holes, for everyone. I mean, their guys are just, Marlon Mack could run for 100 yards every game if he stayed healthy. I mean, Jonathan Williams, and I love Jonathan Williams. Anyone who follows me, you guys all follow me. You guys know I love Jonathan Williams. I mean, Jonathan Williams came in his first 2 starts, or his first start, and then half of that Jaguars game had 200 yards rushing. So this offensive line is a great mix for anyone. And then when you kind of get in a guy who's like Jonathan Taylor has this elite speed, great power. I think that's just a perfect fit there. And when they try to get him in the receiving game, I think that I think he has the ability. I think when you watch him on film, you see a lot of that receiving upside, and you see that he has natural hands. He just was never really used in that role. So I think, with a little bit more development, a little bit more time, and also, everyone crashing down on that run game, because it's going to be really effective with him back there, I think he's going to be a pretty good receiver as well. Let me scroll back up here to see what I missed, though. You guys are kind of throwing in, which is great. Love you guys throwing all these questions. Keep them coming. Do you think Eason will eventually take over a starting job, whether next season or the year after? What's Eason's ceiling and floor? Also, what's your least favorite pick? Okay. So starting with Eason, I think that's kind of always the dream when you take a player. I mean, when you take, even Patman in the 6th round, you're hoping that one day he becomes a starter. Every draft pick you make, every signing you make, you want them to be a starter. So I think, eventually that is kind of the goal. They're going to work towards that. It could be next season. Say he has a great camp, beats out Jacoby for the backup, or even doesn't. He's the 3rd string quarterback all year. I think the plan probably would be, hopefully he's the starter come next season, so they don't have to spend a high draft pick. But we'll see with that. Ceiling, I think he can be as good as any player with his kind of ability. I mean, he has a great arm, throws great velocity. He flashes anticipation and a lot of accuracy on some throws, but he does have a lot to work on. So getting to the floor, I think the floor is as low as it can go. It can be out of the league in like 3 or 4 years. I mean, he does have a lot of flaws, getting out of the pocket, sensing pressure, just overall accuracy and consistency with his mechanics. I think those are all issues, and those are kind of issues that can lead to him being maybe a, I don't want to say it, but like a Paxton Lynch or a Hackenberg type guy where they're kind of out of the league in a couple years. But, honestly, I don't really see that with him. From everything I've heard, one of my good friends, Justin Mello, interviewed him. I've heard a lot of good things about his character, despite all the rumors about his immaturity and stuff, even stuff that I've kind of contributed to saying because I've heard all those rumors. I kind of trust what my buddy Justin Mello said, and he said that Eason comes off as a really mature, studied kid. So I don't think that he's going to bottom out like guys like Hackenberg and I can't Paxton Lynch. That's the other one I was saying. And then my least favorite pick for Indy, if we're going by value of like my board or whatever that the term is that we kind of throw out there as draft analysts and shit, I guess I would say Julian Blackmon. But overall, I don't hate the addition of Julian Blackmon to the team. I think Julian Blackmon's going to be a good player for this team. I wouldn't have taken him in the third round. I thought he was more of a mid to late day 3 type guy, but I do like him being in the locker room, being in that secondary. So I can't really say it's my least favorite pick. I didn't really hate the pick by any means. It's just it was kind of a reach for me, I guess. But I didn't hate the pick. I thought they had a very solid draft all around. It's not something that I'm going to praise for days, kind of like I did the 2018 draft, like we all kind of did the 2018 draft. But I think Blackmon was probably the lowest on my board that they took outside of the guys who I didn't even watch. But honestly, 6th-round picks don't really matter that much. But yeah, I guess Blackmon for that. But I like Blackmon. I think he's gonna be good. Robbie, thanks for being in the stream here, Robbie. Thanks for the question here. Easton has immense potential, and going to the Colts is perfect for him. What does Easton need to do to show that he can be the guy going forward? Well, kind of touching on what I said there a few seconds ago. I mean, the big thing with him is just improving on that consistency, and thankfully he ended up with the Colts where he doesn't have to play this year, and even if there's an injury, he doesn't have to play this year. If Philip Rivers goes down, Jacoby Brissett goes back out there, and Easton is not forced into action too early. The biggest thing with him is just going to be developing those mechanics and that consistency and that accuracy, which is really hard to do. Accuracy is a really tough thing to kind of develop. But the Colts have a really good quarterback guru in Tom House. I think he can really help with the mechanics. I mean, Jacoby Brissett's mechanics from the first year he started to this past year were night and day. And that's where I think we saw some of that better play with Brissett early last year. So yeah, I think that, House is going to do a lot for him. I think Frank Reich just makes things easier for his quarterbacks. So I think that's really going to help. And I think, learning from a guy who is going to, maybe a Hall of Famer one day in Philip Rivers, I think that could all really help him. But, he does have to improve in a lot of core areas to be the guy going forward. But he definitely has that potential, and he can't be the guy. What's your favorite beer, Zach? I love your content. Well, thank you, Cog of War 117. I'm glad you like my content. And favorite beer, I mean, it's tough to say it now with everything going on, but I've always been a big Corona guy. I sometimes with the lime, sometimes without a lime. It's always, I don't know, it's been the beer I drank first when I was like a kid as in like 20. But that's kind of always the one I drank, and that's kind of the one I've been on since then. So I don't know. I haven't really drank too many beers. I tried like Bud Light and stuff like that. I wasn't, a huge fan of it, I guess. I don't know. Corona's always kind of been my go-to though. All right, Jason Sanders, a salary cap question from Twitter. I think he was asking how much we have left in cap space after the draft. So it's hard to officially say right now because although there is from my understanding, and if Kyle Raposa is in here at all, I would really love for him to jump in because this is his area of expertise. But the way that I kind of understand is there's kind of allocated cap space for after the draft for before the draft that you kind of have to put aside for the draft players. But that doesn't come off the books until you sign those players. And honestly, there's probably no rush to sign those guys just because the season is, as of right now, we don't even know when it's going to start. So there's probably no rush to sign those guys. So I'm not too sure when that salary cap will come down from the rookies. I think it's typically around like 8 to 10 million, maybe up to 12 at most, but I think it's like 8 to 10 million. Again, depending on structure and how the contracts come out. But so I think the Colts, again, if you take out that stuff, will maybe be at like 12, 13, 14 million, which is definitely more than enough to, I know the reason why you ask those questions is maybe they'll get a Clowney or Everson Griffin or something like that, which I think that stuff is definitely possible. I'm not going to say it's probable, but I think that's possible for sure. All right. Could we see some plays where Patman is used as a stretch tight end, has size, and will get him on the field more? I definitely think they could. I will say, when I talked to Utah corner Jalen Johnson this past year, for one of my film sessions, he did tell me that, Patman was a guy going in with their film study that they could be physical with him at the line of scrimmage, and that would kind of throw off his ability. He's kind of a finesse type guy despite being this big, go up and get at receiver. And I kind of saw that a little bit on film. I'm not saying that he's, soft or anything like that, but he was more of a finesse guy. He likes to go around guys rather than through them. So I think that definitely hurts, his ability as like a flex tight end. Honestly, though, when it comes to like a flex tight end or a stretch tight end, a lot of those guys are, kind of big slot receivers, So I think we could see a guy like Pittman kind of be that, flex tight end, big slot receiver type. Pittman could definitely move inside there. I think that's definitely a possibility. But yeah, I don't see him making like a full move to tight end. I think they like their group there. I mean, obviously they have two guys they really like in Jack Doyle and Moelle Cox. And then Trey Burton, has that history with Reich. And if he's healthy, he's going to be a good player. So, maybe they get Patman there. Not too sure if that's anything in the cards for him, but I don't think that he's going to get too many snaps in that role. Who is your favorite prospect you evaluated for the Colts? If we're going to talk about this year, the guys they took and stuff. I mean, Michael Pittman was a super fun, just a super, super fun evaluation. I mean, the way he goes up and gets the ball is always fun, but I just really like seeing smooth athletes when it comes to guys that size, and that's a big reason. When I first started doing this, a big player that I was really big on was Michael Thomas. And I know it's easy to say it now after the fact when he's one of the better receivers in football, but when I first started doing this, I was like 19 or 20. I think is when I started, and Michael Thomas, I think, was like my 8th overall player. I was a little more ballsy back then, and I put Michael Thomas, I think, as my 8th overall player, and that ended up working out pretty well for me. I don't have like the site that was up on anymore. I don't think it exists anymore, but yeah, I know. I think he kind of reminds me a little bit of Michael Thomas. I think Thomas is a better route runner, but Pittman, I had a lot of fun watching. I mean, that was definitely a guy that I really enjoyed watching this past year for the Colts. All right. Oh, man, you guys are flooding. I love it. Hey, Zach, interested to hear your view on Blackman. Do you think he's going to be Hooker's backup or play something closer to the Willis role? The best thing about him, I will say about Julian Blackman, from what I've seen, I went back and watched a little bit of him from this past year to kind of refresh my mind a little bit. And I think he can kind of do both, which I think is what the Colts were going for. They wanted a guy who's kind of big and long and physical, and that's kind of what Blackman is. He's not afraid to come in the box. And, he kind of reminds me of Khari Willis a little bit. I mean, Khari Willis this past year, the way that he would just diagnose run plays and just crash into the box and make plays. He looked like he was an elite athlete. And Khari Willis, by all means, is a good athlete, but he's not this elite athlete. But just with his recognition ability, he always looked like an elite athlete. And I think Blackman kind of has that innate ability as well. But because he has that corner background and because he has that athleticism, I think he can be that Hooker, Malik Hooker's backup. I just think he's going to take more development there. I don't think he's really ready to be counted on back there. I would still probably like George Odom as the main backup as of right now. But, I think he definitely has potential to, I would probably start him off as like the Willis backup and then kind of work him in both roles and stuff. Kind of like what they do with George Odom. George Odom kind of does both. I would probably do that with him as well early on. And then Ashton Hall says, how many wide receivers do you think they'll keep? It's going to be like 5 or 6. It's what it usually is. And maybe if they're kind of low on the defense side of the ball, they'll keep 6, but it'll be around 5 or 6. It typically won't get to like 7 or 8 or anything like that. I think I've only seen like one team carry like 7 or 8 receivers. I think it was like the Redskins a couple years ago or some bad team like that. I think it was like them, but typically it's like 5, 6, maybe 7 if you really need depth or someone's injured, but it'll be around 5 or 6 for sure. All right, Mad Max. How did you first get into analyzing football tape? Now, how would you recommend someone to get into analyzing? Well, when I got into it, honestly, I'll be completely honest with all you guys. I mean, all 30 of y'all in here, because I appreciate y'all so much. Tuning into this, just hearing my voice and seeing my shaved face. I'll be honest with y'all. I was at James Madison University. I was a freshman at that school, and I just wasn't enjoying college. I know a lot of people get like that, but when you're a kid kind of in college, it's tough to really rationalize like, oh God, this is not for me. What am I doing here? And I remember I had a project I was doing, and I actually interviewed Matt Miller from Bleacher Report. I don't know how I landed that. I talked to him on the phone for like half an hour. And the biggest thing he told me, the biggest advice he ever gave me, and I'm not even a huge fan of Matt Miller's work anymore, but I always respect him for this one thing. He told me, just write. That's how you kind of get into this. Just write, be original. If it's a blog, if it's writing up, on a piece of paper at your home, if it's watching high school film, if it's watching NFL film, college film, rec league football film, just immerse yourself with football and just write and be original, and get yourself out there, be active on Twitter and stuff like that, and really just grow your brand and establish yourself as a brand, and I really took that to heart. That was a big thing. I think he told me that when I had like 100 followers. We're talking about this being like 4 or 5 years ago. And from there, I started a blog at like, what was it called? I think it was just called Sports Blog, just called Sports Blog. I started a free blog and I started writing, and Pro Football Spot picked me up. And from there, I mean, honestly, when it came to analyzing tape, early on, the stuff that you see is not always going to be great. When I was younger, I thought Brad Kaya was going to be the second coming. I didn't think he was going to be that great, but I had a second round grade on Brad Kaya, and I thought he was going to be a really good quarterback. But the more you do it, the more you kind of learn from your mistakes, and you see, trends that you don't want to keep carrying from each year to the next, and you kind of just get more immersed in it. I would say just study up on the cool clinics that are on YouTube. Those are big resources. You can hear coaches talk. You can see players talk about certain plays and stuff like that. Learn from that, and just kind of learn everything you can. Just absorb as much information. I had a notebook. I don't think I have it. Yeah, I don't think I have it around here anymore, but I had a notebook that just had scribbles of like hundreds of notes I took from like cover 4 defenses, quarters defense, cover 3s, man responsibilities and certain coverages and stuff. I mean, I was just taking stupid notes all the time. I had little index cards at my desk at my day job, and they were just in like a little cubby that I just had 100 index cards about like cloud coverage, like all this kind of stuff. And it's just something that you just have to commit a lot of time to, and it's tough. It's tough to really get good at it, and I wouldn't even say I'm that good at it yet. I'm trying, but yeah, it's just something to keep working on Mad Max, and I think it's something that if you really have a passion for it, you can really get better at it. It's just kind of learning from your resources. People on Twitter, like me, you guys can reach out if you ever want to learn about how to watch film better or better film techniques and stuff like that. So, you can use me as a resource, use, books, coaches, clinics, or just watch film. It doesn't have to be all 22. It can be broadcast film. Just watching football, you can pick up on so many things. And I think that's just really big. It's just, get yourself around the game and it's just watch as much as you can. All right. Sorry, I took a little long on that one. Now we got a bunch to catch up on. Grant asks, have you had a chance to look into UDFA, specifically for Rod Green? We carried 4 tight ends last year until the Redskins stole Hale Henches, which was kind of bittersweet for me. I liked Hale, and then he went to, the team I grew up rooting for, so I kind of got to watch him a little bit there. Hoping Rod can make the team at tight end 4. Thoughts? I mean, he might. I think there's definitely a chance. The Colts like carrying those 4 tight ends, and I really thought they were going to draft another tight end to kind of have 4 in that group. So yeah, I think he has a good chance. I mean, there's some other, Xavier Grimble, I think, has played a little bit in the league, so he has a chance too. And there's another guy too I looked up earlier. I was looking at the roster earlier, kind of planning out my off season, and there was some other guy in there I thought had a chance of making it, but Matt Langle, maybe. I think it was Matt Langle or something. I thought I had another chance, but yeah, Fraud has a great chance, and it was smart of him to sign with this team. I think he has a really good chance, especially if Burton goes down with an injury, he has a good chance to fight his way onto the roster. But I looked into the UDFAs a little bit. I've actually contacted a couple of them. You guys know me, how much I like my interviews and stuff like that. So I have actually contacted a couple of them. I'm actually waiting on a text from which one is it? I don't know which school he's from. I think he's one of those defense tackles. Waiting on a text from him, and we'll see what kind of gets going here in the next couple of days. So I've done a little bit of research on them. Kendall Coleman is a guy who I've been really close with his agent all off season. So I kind of had a feeling he was going to come to Indy, whether late in the draft or after the draft. So I'm really excited about Kendall Coleman. And if you guys haven't done any research on him, he's not this great athlete, but pure technician, really good pass rusher. And he's been working with Robert Mathis the last couple of years as well. So, speaking of UDFAs, that's the guy to definitely check on when it comes to this offseason. Oh, gosh. Man, these are flooding in. Let me see. Who had your favorite draft class and who had your least favorite class? Well, starting with least favorite, we'll probably say Packers. And I actually didn't hate their 3rd round pick. Josiah DeGuara, I think, is a really good player. Even though they said they're going to use him at fullback for some reason, I would much rather use him at tight end, where he's, you can use the athleticism. But yeah, AJ Dillon, I like the Jordan Love pick, but AJ Dillon, I think in the second round, I think that was kind of rough, and a couple other picks were just not great. So probably my least favorite. No, I would say my favorite one was definitely the Broncos. I love the Broncos draft. I mean, first off, they took 3 guys that I interviewed, so I had to kind of say that I love them. They took Derek Tuska. He's one of my favorite players. Natani Muti, I think that's how you say his name. I should know how to say it by now. I've talked to him a bunch of times. And then Michael Ojemudia, they took him in the 3rd round. So I love those 3 guys, and I love that they all end up in Denver. But then I love their first 2 picks as well, KJ Hamler and Jerry Jeudy. I think they're really doing a lot to help a young quarterback and putting some weapons around him. So I really love Denver's draft, and I think that was, maybe besides the Vikings, I think that was my favorite draft. Can we trade Jacoby for OJ Howard? Michael, I will say one of my biggest pet peeves with hypothetical trades. I hate hypothetical trades. I've said it quite a few times. The biggest thing I hate about hypothetical trades is if we don't want these bad players, other teams aren't going to want these bad players. Jacoby, I don't think is a horrible player. Not horrible whatsoever. I just, if it's someone that we're all trying to trade, I don't think other teams are really going to be that interested, especially someone like OJ Howard, who, maybe doesn't have a ton of value right now, but I think he probably has more than someone like Brissett, who got his starting chance and didn't really, win it over. So, yeah, I don't think that trade's happening. I wish it would. I would trade Jacoby Brissett for OJ Howard. I'd probably trade Jacoby and a pick for Howard. I mean, maybe even a higher pick than what you guys would like, just so they could take Jacoby's contract off our hands. But yeah, I mean, I would definitely do it if the Bucs offered it for sure. Do you think it's tough moving on from Manning and Luck, with both being first overall home run picks, as someone like Eason being a mid-rounder in a project? Yeah, it's definitely tough. I've definitely noticed with the Colts fan base, and I love you guys to death. I mean, I love all you guys. But one thing I really noticed with the Colts fan base is you guys are really impatient when it comes to these kind of things. I think that comes from, having Peyton Manning early on and having, Andrew Luck. I mean, Andrew Luck came in and was firing out the gates. So I think it's tough, to see someone struggle like Jacoby Brissett, or seeing a mid-round project like Eason. I will say that Eason, I don't think they're going into the mindset with him being, the guy. I don't think that their mindset as of right now is, okay, Eason is our guy no matter what. I think he has to show a lot of things this offseason, and then they'll see. But yeah, I mean, he could be a mid-round project, and he could be the one that they're kind of relying on. So yeah, I mean, people are just going to have to be patient. Hopefully having Phillip Rivers play well this next year, and maybe, the year after, depending on what happens, kind of calms that impatiency. But yeah, I think we're just all gonna have to be patient. That's the biggest thing. I mean, I grew up a Redskins fan, so I can be patient. Kyle Hickerson just says, "Yo, what's up, Kyle?" Kyle's one of my friends from high school, so that's cool that he jumped on here. Diego said, "Hey Zach, your content is amazing. Thank you so much. I appreciate that." Post free agency and draft, which are the glaring holes in the roster? So the biggest holes in the roster for me, I think, are depth tackle. LaRaven Clark, as we all kind of see, I don't think LaRaven Clark is really the answer at the backup position. I think last offseason he looked all right, and I think he can be okay going forward. But I would like to upgrade that spot. Whether it's Danny Pinter stepping over there a little bit. I think Pinter can play a little bit of the snaps at the tackle spot. He played a little bit. He played pretty well in college. Maybe they signed someone. Maybe Jason Peters wants to be a backup for some reason. Maybe he's just getting nothing out there. I don't know. We'll have to see what happens with that depth of offensive tackle spot. But I think that's a huge hole. And then I think their strong side defensive end is still kind of a hole. That can be fixed kind of easy by just moving Justin Houston over there. Justin Houston's a really good run defender. I think Ben Bonagoo can play a little bit on that side too. I think he's a better run defender than what we all kind of think as of right now. So I think he can play a little bit on that side too, but I do think that's kind of a hole on the defense. And, I'm not going to say that I've heard anything about this. I don't think it's even really going to happen, but, maybe someone like Everson Griffin or maybe someone like Jadeveon Clowney could be options. But from everything I've heard, I don't think those are really happening. So I think it's going to be an internal thing. Maybe Jabal Sheard comes back and plays that strong side again, but he lost so much juice last year. I don't really see him coming back. So I think it's going to be either moving Houston over or maybe Tyquan Lewis steps back into that role and plays that strong side. Derek Larger says, hello, friends. Streaming something you'll do more of. I'd like to. I would really like to do some more streaming. This is actually my first one. And that's why I started like a minute early because I was a little nervous that I had no clue how to do it. My fiance is really good at doing the tech stuff, and I'm just good at, typing on this thing and writing real quick. And, all my interviews I do on just the phone. I'm still trying to figure out Zoom calls for, I have a Colts player I'm interviewing later this week. Hopefully later this week. I'm still trying to hear back from his agency, but a Colts player I'm interviewing this week that I'm trying to figure out Zoom for. So wish me luck with that, guys. But yeah, I want to do more streams. If you guys enjoy this, yeah, I'd love to do more streams. I mean, if this gets, enough popularity, I mean, I'd be willing to do it, once a week. We could do like Monday fireside chats or something. I don't know, whatever you guys want. I mean, I enjoy this because it doesn't take much work on my part. I just have to squint a little bit to read and not look too ugly here on the side and not stutter too much. So yeah, I would love to do more streams if that's something you guys like. All right. If the Colts didn't take Eason in the 4th, who on the board that went before their 5th would you have wanted to see the most? Oh, man. I had to think back to the whole draft now. I will say a couple guys. Man, it's hard to say before they get to the 5th, though, because I can't really think exactly who was there. There was a couple guys I know they liked at that point. I will say just a couple guys late round. I mean, Derek Tuska I really wanted, really bad. Nathani Muti, I know that it was really high on their board, and I know that somebody they really wanted to take, but they just opted for Pinter because he's healthier and has a higher athletic upside. But yeah, I really wanted Nathani Muti there, and other guys like Laurel Murchison, I really wanted him to kind of round out the defensive line group, especially over Windsor. I think they took Windsor over Murchison even, which was a little bit shocking to me. But those are a couple guys I wanted late, but I can't think of someone I would directly have taken over Easton. I personally had James Morgan, the quarterback from FIU, over Easton, but I don't really mind them taking Easton. I think Easton has better starter upside anyway. I think Morgan was more of a career backup and had a better chance of being a backup than Easton. But I think Easton has more starter upside. So I don't really mind, take Easton in the 4th. Honestly, when you get to day 3, and it's the biggest thing that agents tell me that people with the league tell me. I have a couple people that I talk to in the league, not too many. I'm not trying to say I have insider sources, but to everyone I talk to, scouts or agents and such, when you get to day 3, it really doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter that much. I mean, a lot of players prefer to go undrafted when you get to day 3 because you can get smaller contracts and you can outplay those contracts and even get bigger deals and stuff. So yeah, I think I think Easton the 4th is a good risk to take. He has all the upside, and I'm perfectly cool with that pick. Why do you think they reached for Blackman? I hate saying the word reached because, everything nowadays is just big board, yada, yada, yada. My big board's this, so this is why your draft sucked, or my analytics say this, so your draft sucked because of this. I hate saying that stuff, and that's why I don't like saying my least favorite pick or like a reach pick. But when it comes to Blackman, personally, I just thought that Blackman was more of a day 3 talent, and they took him in the 3rd round. And there was a couple guys that I liked better on the board. I liked his teammate that was on the board. Terrell Burgess was on the board in the 3rd round there, and I liked Burgess a lot better. I had Burgess as a top 40 player in the draft. So I definitely would have taken Terrell Burgess over him. But again, when you watch Blackman's tape, you see a guy who flies downhill, who has all the ability to be a good safety. And he's also, a really high character guy, great locker room guy, hard worker. So again, I don't want to say I have an issue with that pick. I like the pick. I just, I thought it was a little bit of a reach. I would take him on day 3. Hopefully with COVID, NFL can safely come up with a solution. Will you be heading out to Colts camp this year like last year? Yeah, I want to. That's definitely the plan, is to head out to Colts camp again. I loved going out there last year. I got to meet, some of my favorite people in here. Jake Arthur, I've known for long time. I've known Jake Arthur through Pro Football Spot and through a lot of other stuff. And yeah, it was great to see him in person and just meet him. So that was awesome. And then Kyle Raposa, I got to shake his hand. Jonathan Williams, actually, Colts running back. Him and I have, developed kind of a friendship on Twitter and stuff. And, I talked to him a couple times and checked in on him. And so we're kind of, I wouldn't say we're like good friends, but I would say me and Jonathan Williams are friends. And it was kind of cool getting out there and meeting him and stuff too. So yeah, no, I would love to get back out there. And, as long as they have it, yeah, I would definitely be out there. I just hope that the COVID stuff is the big concern. Obviously, I hope that everyone's safe and that they're able to kind of get that going. But yeah, I would love to get back out to Colts camp. I loved it out there. Thoughts on Sadiq Charles? Do you think he's going to fill that Trent Williams role? So this is a Redskins question. I do have quite a few Redskins followers still on Twitter, and shout out to those guys who have followed me throughout these years. I know it's probably frustrating to see me jump over to the Colts side, but you gotta move where the money is, right? And then, but yeah, Sadiq Charles. I like Sadiq Charles. I love his upside. I think he's probably one of the best athletes in the class, especially for an offensive tackle. I think he moves really well. He has. There's a lot of good reps where he just has elite grip strength, where he's just holding that block at the point of attack. He just locks down that side. So yeah, I think Brandon Thorne, one of the smartest offensive line guys in the business, someone who I've really tried to model my offensive line analysis off of and stuff. I think he compared a couple reps to Sadiq Charles to David Bakhtiari from the Packers, and I think that's a good comp. That's a good comp. I mean, I think that's a good high end comp. Charles obviously has the off field stuff. I think he needs to add some more weight and some strength to really fill out his frame. But I think his upside's great, and I think they took him in the fourth round. I think the fourth round's a great spot for him. So yeah, I think Sadiq Charles can be the starting left tackle long term for the Redskins. And then hello, Purity Empire. Hello. Thanks for joining the stream here. And then overall grade on the Redskins draft class. I hate saying grades, but I'll say it's a good class. I mean, probably like a B plus. When you get a Chase Young at the beginning, it's hard to really screw it up. But getting Antonio Gibson, I think, was a great pick. I love Antonio Gibson. I think he can do so much for an offense. And then, we just kind of talked about Charles there and also a couple guys on day 3. I really like Khaleke Hudson is one of my favorite players in the class. I just love his intensity and his build. I mean, he's literally built like a boulder. So, I mean, he's going to come in and be one of the strongest players in that locker room. And a couple other guys. So, yeah, I like the Redskins draft overall, and I'm excited for, these next couple seasons with them. I definitely have more hope now when it comes to the Redskins than I really ever did growing up and watching them. Maybe besides 2012 when RG3 had that big year. Yeah, besides that, I can't think of many other hopeful moments I had watching that team. All right, Grant, how do you see the defensive line position shaking out? Taekwon is no coach's favorite, but may need a slide defense end. Where do you see those in-between fits landing on the line? Well, okay. I keep updating it, and it switches on me. You guys can see how bad I am with tech here. But yeah, Taekwon, I think I would probably move him back to defensive end. I think that inside, that interior experiment just really didn't work. And I think, he had some good tape at defensive end. He played a lot of that his rookie year at defensive end because they had some injuries. And I thought he had some pretty good tape there. He had a good game against the Cowboys, I think, in 2018, also against the Jaguars, his first game. So, yeah, I think he can be a good defensive end in this league. He definitely needs to stay healthy and, definitely practice a little harder. I think he was a healthy scratch for a couple games last year. And that usually is something that's indicative of kind of practice habits when it comes to the Colts. So, yeah, there's definitely some room to improve with him. But I know he's kind of a tweener. I think he should play some more defensive end. And I know they talked a little bit about Danico Autry playing some more defensive end again, which I think would be, for some heavy sets, I think that would be interesting to switch him back out there a little bit. So, yeah, hopefully Taekwon can make the roster. It's definitely going to be a fight for him. Luckily, the Colts didn't take really – I mean, they signed – I mean, they got Buckner, obviously. They got Windsor, and they signed Sheldon Day. But outside that, they didn't really add much defensive end. So he might have a decent chance at making it a defensive end, but we'll have to kind of see. It's going to be a tough battle for him for sure. Thought on Hooker's 5th-year option doesn't sound likely, but cost at the middle of the road for safety market sounds reasonable, but some big extension coming soon. So – sorry, my mouth gets so dry when I'm talking so much. So thoughts on Malik Hooker's fifth year option. Honestly, personally, I'd probably pick it up. They have like $150 million projected next year in cap space. So yeah, I would probably pick it up. I don't see the harm. I think it's only like $7 million or $6 million. But I understand the thought process if they don't. Malik Hooker is someone who, you know, when he's been healthy, he hasn't been a bad player, but he hasn't really been that first round player for them. And then, he's had those injury issues. So I could understand them wanting to see more from him. And that's kind of being the reason why they don't pick up the option. So, either way they go with that, I don't think I'd really be upset. I typically don't get too upset about their moves. They know quite a bit about this business. They're some of the best in the game when it comes to this stuff. But I would definitely like to see what happens with that. I think it's going to be interesting to kind of see which way they go with that. From the current roster, who do you think will be the offensive and defensive breakout players? Also, anyone you think will be a surprise player to not make the team? So, I typically like to say offense. I like to say Nyheim Hines, but with the two running backs, I don't think that's really going to happen. I think Taylor's going to get a lot of the workload, and Mac's going to get kind of the other stuff there. So we'll see with that. So offensive breakout player. I'll say Paris Campbell. I think no one's really talking about him right now, and I think I saw enough flashes in that Steelers game to kind of get me excited last year. Obviously he tripped before he could score the easy touchdown. He had a couple fumbles, but that explosive ability is there, and I think that's kind of what we're forgetting a little bit when it comes to him. I mean, you have Pittman, who's a really solid receiver, really smooth route runner, and you have T.Y. Hilton, who obviously is great. I think Paris Campbell could kind of be that X factor, and I think he could be a prime breakout candidate. And then on defense, I want to say Rocky Sin. Rocky Sin is someone who everyone has been down on because of that Denver game. And rightfully so. That Denver game was really bad. I think there was a couple close calls that the refs kind of just went against him on. But after that Denver game, Rocky Sin was the best corner on the roster. I mean, he was outstanding after that. He was locked down. I think he only had like a 50% completion percentage against. I don't think he gave up a touchdown after that game. He gave up a couple deep shots against Houston, and I think against Pittsburgh he gave up one. But I think he's going to be a solid corner, man. I think he's going to be really good. He just is so confident. He's so strong at the point of attack. And I think the way he bounced back from that Denver game was really impressive because that Denver game was atrocious. And many rookies, we just saw, one rookie that was traded away in Quincy Wilson. We saw what happened with him. He had one bad play and his season was bad. He was so in his head all the time. And I think the beauty of Rocky Sin is he just doesn't get in his head. He moves on and he builds off his mistakes. And I think that was really big that we saw from his rookie season, probably the biggest development that we saw from his rookie season. So I'm going to say Rocky Sin will be the defensive breakout player. I hope he gets a couple more picks this next year and really makes a name for himself. And then the surprise player not to make the team. A couple that come to mind, maybe TJ Carey. If that 6th-round rookie, Isaiah Rodgers, beats him out, could be one. Maybe one of the linebackers that have been making it the last couple of years, EJ Speed maybe. I don't think they're going to give up on him too early, though. Matthew Adams, Zaire Franklin could probably get cut. I'm trying to think of like a big one that could get cut, but I don't really think there's a big one. It's probably possible that Jacoby Brissett could get cut, but I don't see that really happening. I don't see too many huge ones. I think the roster is fairly set right now. Tyquan Lewis will probably be the biggest one just because, they spent such a high draft pick on him. But yeah, I think that would probably be the biggest one that could happen. Team likely to keep 4 running backs, best 4 being Mack, Taylor, Hines, Wilkins, but they also signed a fullback in Nix, who's likely an odd man out between Wilkins or Nix. I think it all depends. Obviously, there's going to be injuries in the offseason. Obviously, when they signed Nix, they envision having a fullback this year, but I don't think it's a necessity. But I would say probably leaning right now, I think Nix probably has the edge over Wilkins just because, Nix plays that specialty role. Wilkins is kind of excessive at this point. But we'll have to see, how injuries play. If Taylor or Mack get banged up in the offseason, knock on wood, Wilkins can make it and maybe Nix gets cut. So we'll have to see kind of how that rolls there. But I would say Nix probably has the inside route right now. Do you see this Colts team with a deep playoff run? Rivers an upgrade percent, a little bit better. They have the coaching for it. They have the roster for it. They have DeForest Buckner now, who's a difference maker. They have a lot of guys who are difference makers now on all levels of the defense and good players on the offense too. So yeah, I think they can make a deep playoff run. I mean, it's going to be tough going through Baltimore, Kansas City in the AFC, but I think they can compete. It all comes down to how your quarterback plays and how well your coaching is, and if your defense can get turnovers. And I think this defense can get turnovers. They have great coaching, and it's going to come down to how well Phillip Rivers plays. So, yeah, I definitely think they can make a run. It's just the question really is, are they going to? And that's something we're going to have to follow this next year. Are you familiar with Keith Ishmael? Love your work. Funny story about Ishmael. So me and Brad Kelly down at the Senior Bowl. If you guys don't know Brad Kelly, he's great on Twitter. A big receiver guy. We were watching film in the film room, and we both really liked Keith Ishmael. I mean, we really liked what he was doing out there. I think he can add some more strength, but overall, I think he's a really good athlete who can get to the second level and kind of box guys out. But yeah, I like Keith Ishmael, and funny story is I was going to interview him on the Monday before the draft, but his agent didn't get back to me, so I was kind of burnt out anyway, so I didn't really pursue it too much. But I really liked it. I really liked Ishmael, and I think he's a good player. And I don't think he's like a starter right away for the Redskins, but I think he's going to be a solid depth player behind Rouye and kind of fill in when needed. So I really like that pick. I think he's going to be a good depth player. Best place for Wilkins to get a shot after his inevitable cut in camp. I don't know, man. Running backs are a dime a dozen at this point, and we spent a second-round pick on one. Man, I hope he goes somewhere that kind of – I think it's going to be wherever an injury really is. I just realized it's from Nate. How's it going, Nate? Yeah, I think it's going to come – wherever there's going to be an injury. There's going to be some injury. There's always a big injury in training camp or in the preseason, if there really is a preseason or training camp. And I think Wilkins is going to get a shot maybe as a depth player there who can get some snaps. But, overall with Wilkins – the reason why he's never really picked up steam is, he's not explosive. He's not a great athlete, but he is just so solid. I think he's going to stick in this league for a while. As long as running backs really do, I think he'll get to around 30 years old as a depth player. Hopefully he gets a couple years where he gets the ball a little bit, but yeah, his vision's great. He's quick and all that stuff, but I think NFL teams just love those explosive plays. And outside of a couple big plays he's had for the Colts, I don't think he's a consistent explosive guy. That's why he's never really going to be like the guy in the NFL. But, I wish him the best, and I hope he makes his team. I love Jordan Wilkins. I loved him back when he was a prospect, and I was so happy when the Colts took him. But it's just been tough to get carries on this team, even with, Marlon Mack being injured. Do you see Khaleke Hudson as a will or a strong safety? How is he in coverage? So, Khaleke Hudson, one of my favorite players in the class, just a stout special teamer. Kind of can do it all. He can blitz off the edge. He can play some linebacker, play some safety if you need him to. But he's definitely more of a will. I wouldn't really put him in deep safety. I wouldn't do too much of him in the defensive backfield. I would kind of be a little more scared of him in coverage. He's a bit grabby. But he's mostly gonna be a core special teamer. So definitely. So definitely more of a special teams guy, play some will, but I don't think he's great in coverage, and I would be kind of scared early on putting him in coverage. Prediction on Colts standing in the AFC South. Also, how do they stack against the Ravens and Chiefs? So Colts, I think they're up there with the Titans and Texans for best in the South, and I would only really put, the Texans up there just because they have the best quarterback in the division. Deshaun Watson, I wouldn't say I've been a hater of his game the last couple of years, but I've always been lower on him than most. But it's kind of hard to deny that, his style kind of is working, and he's a really good player. So yeah, I put, the Colts are right up there with those two. And I think the Titans are one of the most well-built teams in the NFL, and so are the Colts. So yeah, it's going to be a good battle. And how do they stack against the Ravens and Chiefs? I think they can beat them. Obviously, they beat the Chiefs last year, and I think they could have put up a decent fight against the Ravens as well if they went against them. But it's going to be tough. Those are the two best teams in the AFC, and the Chiefs have the best quarterback in the world right now. And who knows how good his career is going to be when it's all said and done. So yeah, they're going to be tough to beat, but I think the Colts can compete. I wouldn't say they're favorites against them, but they can definitely compete with those two. Matt Miller said next year's wide receiver class looks like a rival this class. Do you agree? While looking at film, so I haven't really looked at the film much of next year's class. I've seen Smith from Alabama, who is outstanding. I think on film I liked him better than Jerry Jeudy. But that's just me. Obviously, Chase is great, and we all saw him last year with LSU. He was the best receiver in college football. So I think it can be a really good one. But honestly, I think we say this about next year's quarterback class is better than this year's. Next year's running back class is better than this one. So it's kind of tough to see. We don't really know until people actually declare and people have big senior years. I mean, who would have thought Joe Burrow would be the number one pick this time last year? So I think it's a little early to say, and obviously Matt Miller has to say that stuff because he's paid to, paid to hype up draft classes. He's a draft scout, but I think it's a tad too early to kind of proclaim stuff like that. I would say it's a good class on paper, and it can be a good class, but I don't know right now. Do you see a scenario where anyone trades for Brissett? Would they be better hoping he gets a decent contract in free agency? I don't think he's going to get a decent contract in free agency. I think he'll get an all right one. Like, I don't think, when Teddy Bridgewater went to go back up Drew Brees in New Orleans, I think that was a really good contract. I don't think Brissett's going to sniff that. I think he'll sniff, high level backup money, which will probably be like $6-7 million a year, $8 million maybe close to 10 if teams are desperate. But we are hearing a lot of rumors about there being a major drop in cap space next year because if they don't have fans at stadiums and stuff like that, then the revenue is going to go down. So we'll have to kind of see how that goes. But I think if you get an offer for Brissett, you just kind of got to take it at this point. I know he's a fine backup, whatever. And you don't want to throw Easton out there too early, but if Rivers goes down, the season's probably lost anyway. So I would trade Brissett if I got a pick. If I got any pick, really, shed that contract, work on some extensions for my guys, and I would kind of move on from that contract there. But that's just me. I know Brissett has a lot of fans, and again, high character guy, a great dude. I wish great things for him. I hope he's a stud. I wish he was a superstar in this league. But just from what I saw last year, I think whatever you can get for him, I would probably trade him for that. And it looks like we're kind of dying off on this stream here, and we're at 52-minute mark. So we'll conclude it with this here. We all appreciate your hard work, Zach. Thank you. It was obvious your peers are influenced by your opinions and didn't take long to hear players brought up by them only after you did. Well, I don't know who you're talking about, Michael, but I appreciate that. I'm sure there are a couple on Colts Twitter who not only listen just to my opinions, but guys like Jake Arthur and other, my Colts account, guys like that, and they kind of form their own opinions off that. I will always advise you guys, obviously read my work, click on my stuff, pay my water bill or whatever by doing that. But, form your own opinions. My opinions are just that. They're opinions. I feel confident in my opinions. I study a lot. I have Howard Mudd's book by my bedside table. I read offensive line play all the time. And I do a lot of studying to get to the point where I feel confident in my opinions, but don't take my opinions as 100%. Like I said earlier, I thought Brad Kaya was going to be a good quarterback in this league. I've thought a lot of players would be good. I thought DeMarcus Lodge was going to be a good player last year. I've had plenty of misses, and I definitely will admit to them, and there's a reason for it because I'm continually trying to get better. Just always have your own opinion. Always go with that opinion there, and believe in what you're saying. If you thought Jake Fromm was the best quarterback in this class, but I said that I wouldn't draft him, which was the case for a lot of people I talked to. Go with your gut. Trust what you're seeing, and if Fromm becomes the best quarterback in the class, I'll adjust. And if Fromm, proves to not be draftable, then you should adjust. But at the end of the day, it's kind of what your opinion is and what you want to roll with. And I'll never try to force my opinion on you guys. I'll talk to you about it, maybe make some insults and stuff like that with GIFs. But I'll always like your tweet before I say that, just so you know it's a joke. and yeah, I mean, I'll try to have that conversation with you guys and stuff. But yeah, the biggest thing is I'm just trying to inform you guys on what I'm seeing. It's not trying to inform you on the 100% correct opinion, because there's no such thing as a correct opinion. It's an opinion. I try to back it up with as much visuals as I can, so you can kind of develop your own opinions as well. That's why I like doing my film rooms. I like to do in the film sessions with players, because you can see what we're seeing. It's not all taking my word of mouth for it. So I really like that aspect of what I do, and I know that you guys do too, and that's why I got 13 of you in here earlier, or right now, but I had a bunch of you guys in earlier. So yeah, I want to conclude this with that right there, though. I really do appreciate all you guys who have hung with me here. I don't know how many of you guys have hung for all 55 minutes, but I really appreciate it here. I appreciate all the questions and getting this thing going, and you guys really showed the support on Twitter and on here the last couple of days. So yeah, I appreciate you guys tuning in, and maybe we'll make this a regular thing. Maybe start off once a month or so, or once every couple of weeks, and make it more regular if the channel starts growing. But yeah, tell your Colts friends about it. Tell your family like the Colts and stuff. And I'm going to try to get some more stuff going on this channel, and I'll have some interviews coming with players on here as well. I'll probably do some Zoom interviews with players. I know I've already got one or two scheduled, and I'll try to get some more on here as well. But I want to get some more content up for you guys, especially in this time right now where there's really not much to do. So yeah, keep checking out this channel. Tell all your friends and family, like this video, like all the videos you see on there and stuff. And I just appreciate you guys a lot for the support. I obviously not done this overnight. This has been a years-long process, kind of building up where I'm kind of at now. But I really appreciate all the support you guys give me. I always appreciate it. So thanks for tuning in, guys, and maybe I'll catch you guys next time on here. And